So I have been asked about the possibility of the Tigers trading for three different players in the last 24 hours. So we're going to talk about all of those, as well as previewing Tarik Skubal's 2025 campaign and more, all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alrighty, happy Wednesday, halfway point in the week here. Got a lot to talk about today for it being, February 19th and it being, like the fifth day of camp or sixth day of camp or whatever it is. Not too much out of camp, mostly just stuff surrounding the Tigers organization. As I mentioned in the cold open, I have been directly asked about three different trade possibilities for the Detroit Tigers, and I don't think any of them are even remotely close to happening. Spoiler alert, I don't think it's very likely that any of those three that we're going to talk about occur. One of them is Arenado, who we've talked about a couple times throughout the winter already. The other two we haven't given much thought to. I think, and are only here because of new news that is surrounding Major League Baseball. We'll talk about it. Okay, we'll talk about it. There is a couple small minor notes from camp that we will discuss. Then we're going to preview Tarik Skubal. And then with the time we have left, we're going to preview Andy Ibanez and Ryan Kreidler. The reason why is because I don't think for any of those three players, there is a super long preview. I think everyone is pretty well aware of what they expect out of all three of those guys for very different reasons in the 2025 campaign. So we're going to try to get through all of that today. Let's jump into, first off, an article from The Athletic that listed Jackson Jobe as the most likely player in baseball to win a Cy Young Award, which I think is a fascinating way of doing it. So they combined, the author, I'm not sure or if it was a combined piece maybe for a lot of different people, but it was The Athletic, so go check the article out there. It's fascinating to do it that way, where you combine leagues, American League and National League, and just decide who is the one player that is the most likely to take home one of these two awards. Not that you can win both. Obviously, you can only win the league that you're in, but I think that's a cool way of kind of combining rookie classes from American League and National League. So Jackson Jobe, not only on the list, I think they went all the way up to 50, the number one most likely player, according to The Athletic, to bring home the rookie of, did I say Cy Young? I meant Rookie of the Year award. I'm not sure what I said, but I meant Rookie of the Year. So really fascinating there. I mean, we're pumped, right? Like we are beyond excited. This is obviously one of the highest ranked pitching prospects the Tigers have honestly ever had. It's probably the highest ranked pitching prospect the Tigers have at least had since Justin Verlander. I am absolutely excited beyond belief for Jackson Jobe, and I hope that he makes the team out of camp, and I hope that he can keep a spot in the rotation the whole year, because that would be really, really fun. National media seems to agree. Let's get into some of these trade conversations. Okay. The first one is Nolan Arenado, and the reason that's first is because we've talked about it before. I don't think this is going to happen. I'm really okay if it doesn't. I don't need this to happen. First off, he has been declining for years. There's 3 years, including this one, I believe, left on his contract. Now he's not getting paid like through the roof for those. It was a contract that was more front loaded, so the money gets a little bit less as time goes on. But I don't need the current iteration of Nolan Arenado at third base for what the Tigers would have to give up to get him. And even if you disagree with me on that and you're listening and you're like, you're an idiot, Nolan Arenado would be the best third baseman on the team, you're probably right. But he has a no trade clause. Like, we can want him all we want, rather. He made a list publicly. It's out there. You can go look at it, of 5 teams. Guess who's not on there? The Detroit Tigers. And, obviously we know we have a weird relationship with no trade clauses here with the whole Eduardo Rodriguez drama. But, like, some people waive them and are like, oh, like, you could technically say yes to anything. Just because he makes a list public doesn't necessarily mean that he only has to go to those 5 teams. He can go anywhere he wants, is the point. That's the power that he holds. But he rejected a trade from the Astros, reportedly. What was that, in December? So, like, I have a hard time believing that he's going to be, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I don't think that is a possibility. I don't think that's going to happen. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think the Tigers are really that interested in Nolan Arenado. I don't think they're interested enough to have to jump through all of the hoops it would take to convince him to come here, and the price that it would cost to give up, the assets it would cost to give up to the Cardinals to bring him in on top of that, and with the production he had last year. I really don't think it's that great of a fit, even though he plays third base. The other 2 players are interesting because they have to do with recent huge news across baseball. One is Vlad Guerrero Jr. Now, I don't know the origin of this trade hypothetical, okay? I don't know. I saw it from Woodward Sports, but that does not mean that they are the ones that concocted the trade. I have no idea where the origin is. There was nothing on the post that said, where it came from. I don't know. But the trade that they posted, at least, that I saw, is like there is absolutely no chance that happens, and the Tigers should never do that trade in a million years. For those who didn't see it, it was Colt Keith, Kevin McGonigal, Hao-Yu Lee, and Troy Melton for Vlad Guerrero Jr., who, as it stands right now, is a free agent in like 8 months. That is a lot of your future for a player that is going to be a free agent in 8 months. That is absolutely under no circumstances happening. Now, if you start having the conversation of, is there an extension tagged onto that, right? Then that opens the door for a little bit more of a conversation. If the Tigers know for a fact that they can extend him immediately, obviously that changes things a little bit. Even if that is the case, that is still not something that I think is going to happen. That is a hefty price tag. The concept of trading for Vlad, period, I also don't think it is really something the Tigers are going to be looking to do. Yes, he is a phenomenal hitter and instantly would become your best hitter. I completely understand and agree with all of that. But as I just mentioned, he is going to be a free agent in 8 months. You don't. Why would you sell the farm? Yes, if they trade him somewhere, they get first dibs at talking contract extension. Absolutely. But like he literally said on Tuesday, the Blue Jays didn't meet my needs by my deadline. So now they have to compete with 29 other teams. That's the quote from his own camp. I think if you really wanted Vlad, you would just offer him, $300 million or whatever he's going to get offered in a little over half a year from now. So that's where I stand with Vlad. Obviously would love to have a talent like that in the lineup, obviously. But I think it's going to be a heck of a price tag. I don't think the Tigers should even consider doing this mock trade that was making the rounds online And if worst comes to worst and you really still want him, you can just pay him what he's worth in this winter. Next man up is Rafi Devers, which I also don't think is happening. We'll talk about that right after this. Got to talk to you all today about our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. If you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is the one highest protein nut. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're absolutely packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shell variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, there's always Wonderful Pistachios ready for my convenience. And especially, like I said, the no-shells variety. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite as well. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shots to every dayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow as we keep the ball rolling. We're going to go more in depth on some player previews and talk about any news and notes from camp with spring training games just right around the corner. Today, we're going to player preview Tarik Skubal, Andy Ibanez, and Ryan Kreidler. But before we do that, I'm going to put a bow on these mock trades. Rafael Devers. I've been asked a few times on if the Tigers should go after him. The Red Sox, what is happening? Like I am blown away by that whole saga. They told Devers that he was going to play third his entire contract, but now that GM that signed him to the contract is gone, and the new one is not as keen on that. He obviously has not been a very good defensive third baseman for most, if not all, of his career. And then you bring in a Gold Glove caliber third baseman, and then when he signs, everyone is told that Bregman is just going to play second so that Devers can play first, so that Devers can play third, so Cassis can play first. And now it's well, and then you have Wilyer Abreu who like can DH. it's Tristan Cassis was giving his opinion on who should make the team out of camp. We need some media training for the fine gentleman in Boston. That team needs to just shut its mouth. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Like I am blown away by the news that has come out of Red Sox camp here over just the last like 2 days. When it comes to Devers specifically, I'll believe it when I see it, man. I don't think there's any world in which the Red Sox are trading Rafi anytime soon. He is got a $300 million contract. He is one of the best hitters in the game. He is still pretty darn young. I don't see any world in which they're just willing to move on from their best hitter, and not like, oh, he's the Red Sox, like one of the premier hitters in the American League, one of the premier hitters in baseball when he is healthy. Maybe I'm wrong. As I say all the time, I've been wrong plenty. I'll be wrong plenty more. But as it stands on February 19th, I'm going to have to hear and see a lot more evidence that they are actually considering moving him before I'm like, what would it take? It would take a bleep load. It would take an egregious amount as it stands right now. But we'll see. We'll keep an eye on the situation as we do with all situations. We'll keep an eye on it. But I would not hold my breath on that happening anytime soon. Full squad workouts for the Tigers begin. The only notable thing I caught from that was a few of the beat writers were talking about it. how Eddie's Leonard was getting reps over at third base. I think Evan Woodbury is the one I saw, but I know that some other people talked about it too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that didn't happen like the second he was acquired. I guess, you want to see if he can stick at shortstop just to see. But he should be getting a lot of reps at third. I think that makes all the sense in the world. And then shout out bearded Gleyber Torres, who for the first time in his professional career can rock a beard and is loving every second of it. Let's break down Tarik Skubal. As I mentioned, there's not actually a ton to talk about here because what am I going to do? Criticize Tarik Skubal's pitching? Am I going to come on here and talk about what he could be better in? Because that's a very short list. Last season, he was one of, if not the best pitchers in all of baseball. Went 18-4 in 192 innings. That's 31 starts. Had an ERA of 2.39, an expected ERA of 2.72, a WAR of about 6, depending on which website you look at, either slightly above 6 or slightly below 6, a K per 9 of 10.69, and a walk per 9 of 1.64. Ground ball rate of almost 46% is really good as well. Just like he did everything incredibly well. He has one of the best fastballs in the entire sport. His pitching run value last year was actually the 100th percentile, and his fastball run value was the 99th percentile. I think probably only getting beat out by, I don't know, did Paul Skeens maybe qualify for an innings limit there? Maybe it's him. There's only you can count on one hand the amount of guys that have definitively, especially starters, a better fastball than Tarik Skubal. His Savant page is all bright red. This guy does not walk anyone, strikes out everyone, and when the ball is hit, it's on the ground. That is the perfect pitcher. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when you are building a prototype pitcher, that is what you want. You want someone that is not going to beat themselves and put people on base via walk, is not going to let the ball be put in play very often, because objectively, the most efficient out is a strikeout. Well, that's can be construed in a lot of different ways. The most guaranteed out is a strikeout. And then when the ball is put in play, he's in the 72nd percentile in ground ball rate as well. He doesn't get hit hard. He stopped the Skubal inning for those longtime listeners back when Skubal was like a rookie. We used to talk about the Skubal inning, how he would consistently go 6 innings, 5 runs, and all 5 runs were in one inning. And if you just got rid of that, then you're talking about a really good pitcher. Well, he did. And sure enough, he was pretty darn good. Won the Triple Crown for the American League last year. Led the American League with 228 strikeouts and a whip of about 0.9. I'm really just yelling stats at you, and that's not even good analysis, so we can move on here. But there is nothing for me to add or say. If there's anything, I would say in a perfect world, he can throw even more innings. He threw 192 innings. I would love for him to be able to cross that 200 inning threshold. But at the same time, that also is kind of like an outdated mindset for me, to have, that maybe I just have to get over. I know there's a lot of people listening that are going to hear me say that and be like, yeah, no, you stand on business. You should be wanting more innings, kind of a more old school mindset. But in all of baseball, not just the American League, in all of baseball, Tarik Skubal threw the 8th most innings. 192 was 8th. The league leader in innings was 208. So I'm asking for him to cross 200. Maybe that's going one more inning in a few more starts and then just getting one more start on the year. And he's at, 205 to 210. But he's no pitcher these days is probably ever going to be much more than 210, because that's just baseball these days. That's not Tarik Skubal's fault. That's just how the game is managed and how the game is played. So I don't even know if that's really a fair criticism. I think it's probably not. I guess, I don't know, in a perfect world, maybe the slider is a little bit more effective, but like it was an elite pitch. Like I'm just really grabbing at straws here, man. Like there is nothing. There is nothing. He had a 169 average against sliders, and I'm on here like an idiot. Like, oh, maybe you could get better there. What do you want? The expectation. That's what this is, right? A player preview. The only thing in the back of my head is just stay healthy. Because if he stays healthy and stays on the mound, he will be one of the best pitchers in baseball. Because he has one of the best fastballs in baseball, and he has one of the best changeups in baseball. Just stay on the field. That's the biggest question mark. Because at the end of the day, he's had one healthy season. One. And it was last year. And that was a Cy Young season. But he's had one fully healthy, no restrictions, no limits, no long periods of missed time season, really in his entire career. And if he wants to get paid, then that is obviously in his best interest as well. So that's just what we're all pulling for. Just stay on the field. And if he does, you can almost chalk up a win once every fifth day, which is just awesome. And that's what we had last year. And that's what I expect this year. He's really good at baseball. Okay, let's get into Andy Ibanez and Ryan Kreidler. We'll get into them right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at Select Quote. In sports, having a winning strategy is, well, everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, World Series, and Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, almost said 40 million years. That would be really crazy. They've helped over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch, because unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. And if you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. So get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Select Quote, they shop, you save. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 3, third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always. So talked about Tarik Skubal, talked about how there's not much that he needs to change. We know he's one of the best players in baseball and are expecting him to continue that trend going into the 2025 season. Andy Ibanez and Ryan Kreidler. We're going to start with Andy Ibanez because I think the conversation's weirdly similar to Tarik Skubal. Obviously, I am not claiming that Andy Ibanez is one of the best players in baseball, but I think we all know his role and what to expect out of him and know what he has to do to continue keeping a roster spot. Andy Ibanez plays multiple positions. He plays them decently well, and he crushes lefties. That is his job. He is not going to be an everyday starter ever, but he is a guy that could play on an AJ Hinch team, especially 162 games, because he is always going to be one of AJ's first options off the bench when a lefty is on the mound late in a ball game. Last year, he hit .292 with an .802 OPS against left-handed pitching. Against righties, had a .407 OPS. So if he wants to keep a spot on this roster, if he wants to make the team out of camp, which we expect him to, and play into September, October, and stay on the roster, he really just needs to keep hitting lefties. Because this team really needs righties that can hit lefties. And that is why he will always have a spot as long as he continues doing that. I do want to give him credit for his defense. He was in the 91st percentile in outs above average last year, with a +6 across all positions that he played. That's unbelievably impressive. That's really good defense and double his OAA production from 2023. So yeah, like never going to have a cannon of an arm, not a guy that you want to play third base every day, or certainly not like shortstop every day, but can give you good, there's a lefty on the mound. He's going to play one game this series, or going to pinch hit late, can play second, can play third, can play corner outfield, which I'm sure he'll be getting a lot of looks at here in spring training. I adore Andy Ibanez. I really do love him to death. And even though the offensive numbers as a whole, season wise, maybe don't look that pretty, like we know what his role is and we know who he does hit. And yeah, as long as he keeps doing that, and I have no reason to assume he'll stop. He had one of the biggest hits in recent memory of Tigers baseball in the playoffs off of one of the best relief pitchers of this current generation. I think that's the plan. And at 31, I don't think he's going to just completely fall off a cliff. But if he does, right, that's really the only thing. Like, what happens if he stops hitting lefties? Then he's DFA'd. It's really as easy as that. Love Andy Ibanez. First in, last out kind of guy at Tigers spring training and Tigers camp. Let's talk about Ryan Kreidler. So Ryan Kreidler's stats in his career have not been good at the major league level. This is across 3 different seasons. He has a 147 average, a 193 slug. That's a 405 OPS that he is rocking with 2 major league home runs. Brutal numbers. None of the analytics are good either, like the metrics and what's the word I'm thinking of? The whatever, not important. The advanced, like exit velocity and expected stats and all that. Peripherals, goodness gracious. His peripherals aren't great either. Look, I like Ryan Kreidler. Everybody says that he's fantastic to have in the clubhouse. I was really rooting for him back in 2021 when he had that big kind of explosion of a year in AAA. I think it is going to be hard for him to stay on the roster this entire year. And the reason I say that is because he has one option left. So the Tigers will be able to send him to the minor leagues when camp ends and when the regular season is to come, because he's not going to make the team out of camp. And he's going to get sent down. That's going to be his last minor league option. So that means going forward beyond this year, the Tigers are going to be in a position where if they want to keep him in the organization, he is going to have to clear waivers anyway. They're going to think ahead and know that that is looming. And he is probably just going to be, if they are to bring in more, add somebody internally to the 40-man roster, especially a bat internally to the 40-man roster, I would imagine Ryan Kreidler would be pretty high on the list of players that would end up getting DFA'd as a result of said addition to the 40-man roster. So I think he's toward the bottom of the totem pole, which is really too bad because, again, by all accounts, he's just a fantastic dude to have around, and everybody on the team loves him. But I think the biggest thing as to why that's kind of like where I stand with him at this point is because of the defense. I have heard and I have watched with my own 2 eyes this dude play baseball in Toledo for literal years now. And every single time you watch the Toledo Mud Hens play, defensively, he is easily one of, if not the best defender on the field. Every game, he looks spectacular. In the majors, this past year, he had a negative outs above average and made a couple of really crucial errors in some of the games that he played. Just bobbling the ball. I don't know the dude. I'm not here to speculate. That's not my job and not really that important. I don't know if it's nerves or if it's just that's the highest level in the world and the game just gets too fast. The game got too fast for me way younger, way at a much lesser level, we'll say, than Ryan Kreidler made it. Living the dream, obviously, but I think that there is a possibility that it just is that. Like it's just the game maybe gets too fast and whatnot at that level. So we'll see what happens. Obviously rooting for him, and again, I expect him to be in the system early on this year. And if he's crushing the ball, I mean, heck, maybe he'll find his way back on the roster at some point. In the middle of the season, maybe if there's an injury or something like that. But I think he's going to have to really ball out if he wants to stay on this roster long term. Okay. I think that's pretty much everything I got for you. I want to end the show by just saying, Andy Isaac, love you. Yeah, we all love you, and we are here for you. All the love in the world to Andy Isaac. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.